Hello!
Hello, AOS fans!
It's the Agents of Sigmar.
And in this video, we're looking at the recent Bugmans clash and asking, does Underworld have a first warband problem?
Yes. Do they have a first warband problem? Sort of a first and second season warband problem to be exact.
Yes, I was struck by something that Nick Baton had said. If you don't know who Nick Baton is, he works for the Warhammer community team and he runs the Bugmans clashes, which are monthly on a Friday night in the Bugmans bar. Actually, it wasn't in the Bugmans bar this time, but at Warhammer World on a Friday night, he runs this Underworlds clash. And he put the result, I mean, he's great. He runs the event and he gets people in. And
it's all pro bono, as it were. It's just all off his own back. He's not, you know. And
he has a spreadsheet and he publishes the spreadsheet on the Facebook page so we can all see how the event went. But I was struck by something he said, which was like, oh, look how amazing it is to see all these first Season 1 warbands. And I was thinking, well, on the one hand, that is great. On the other hand, loads of Season 1 warbands feels a little bit to me like there could be an issue.
Yeah.
I mean, perhaps I'm nitpicking. And actually, when I looked at the data, it was quite interesting, although it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. So, Pete, I don't know if you want to run through the numbers of warbands.
Here are the numbers. So there were 38 warbands in total.
That's number one.
Number one. Total of Season 1, there were 10 Season 1 warbands, which is about 26%, so about a quarter, give or take. Total of Season 1 and 2 warbands added together was 15, 40%. Around about.
So, I mean, I'm going to say nearly half, even though it's not really.
Nearly half. I mean, that's how this that's how maths works. So Season 2, there were 5 there, 10 and 5, total of 15. Of Season 3, there were 7 warbands, so that's the Beast Grave season. And of Season 4, there were 11, so a little bit more, about nearly 30% almost. And then of Season 5, there were only 3. None of those were the Cunning Crew.
Yeah, and that's an interesting statistic. I don't know whether that is just because there are less warbands to choose from, or whether that just means people aren't that excited by them.
Possibly.
I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think Xandars are particularly exciting, and I think Black Powders are perhaps a little bit underpowered.
Yeah.
Which is something perhaps we'll talk about at the end of the video. But because I want to focus on the fact that 40% of the people who entered were Season 1 and 2, the bulk of which was Season 1.
And over half of them in total actually had warbands that you can't buy now. Season 1, 2 and 3, you can't buy any of those. And that was well over half of all the warbands. So if someone came to Bugmans who just got in Season 5, like, oh, what's that warband? Oh, what's that warband? Oh,
that's a really good point. I hadn't considered that also Season 3's out. Okay, it wasn't a massive number. It did play Season 3, but I've forgotten there, that is, like you say, over 50% of warbands that you can't buy anymore.
Yeah, which is a little bit rubbish when you turn up to something like you're brand new in Harrow Deep and you've got your Black Powder or whatever you're taking, and then you suddenly come up against Scritch and Magor and just random warbands from Season 2 and 3 as well. You know, you can't buy them. Well, you possibly might be able to track them down, but you can't go to GW's website and buy them.
I don't want to read too much into it. There was still the majority warband was still the most recent full season, so that's something to be said for that. But I just wonder whether it says something about the player base and whether GW ought to be doing something to support those early warbands a little bit more. There's that, and the fact that Harrow Deep is barely represented, which I think is slightly concerning.
You'd hope that they would be the current hotness, that everyone would be like, I want to take those, but maybe it's because of the nature of the tournament itself, maybe it's just the nature of the event,
because it is a kind of casual best of one, it's not championship, it is a Rivals Plus, I think we possibly should have said that at the beginning, but it is a Rivals Plus tournament. For those of you who don't know what Rivals Plus is, we have talked about it before, but Rivals Plus basically means you can take any cards from your faction deck and you can supplement it with one of either the Essentials deck, the Illusory Might deck, and the Silent Menace deck. And I assume as going forward and they bring out more Rivals decks that you can use, that Nick will add those in as well. But at the moment it's just those 3 decks and you pick one. And as we've discussed previously, everybody pretty much chooses Essentials deck.
Yeah, I think there were 25 of all 38 people took the Essentials deck as their secondary deck. 3 took Silent Menace and 2 took the Illusory Might, and 8 psychopaths out there took just the faction card. But they were things like, there were, I can't remember any of them now. There was the Skellygogs from Season 4. So there was Canaan's Reapers.
There was 3 of those.
There was Morgwaith, which I was quite shocked by. Morgox, which isn't so surprising. There was the Big Bad Ogre, number 1.
So as I said, this was a casual, it's not a championship, it's Rivals Plus, so people perhaps aren't trying to play the meta. I'm not even sure what the meta is anymore. I'm not sure anybody is. There's been so few tournaments reported. I don't know, does anybody know what the meta is at the moment?
Yeah,
Aman might. Aman, if you watch, in the comments below what the meta is. But I guess this shows that people have been, a lot of people who are still turning up at these tournaments are people who've been in the game for a long time and they want to play with those Season 1 warbands.
Yeah, they've been around either since the start or very close to the start, and they've got their not necessarily Scritch, but as we've seen, Magor, they were heavily represented, you know, and who doesn't
have a full collection really that they can draw from, and,
exactly.
and they want to play them. And of course, those early warbands, most of them aren't competitive in a full championship meta, but in this Rivals Plus format, they are a little bit more, and that's people want to bring them. This got me thinking: well, should GW support that, and what could they do to do that? I
mean, you look at a lot of the Season 4 you look at a lot of the 4 fighter warbands now from Season 4 and 5, and possibly even to an extent 3, although I can't remember if there were any in 3 now, I say it, but all the smaller warbands, their fighters have a lot more special things going on. And then you look at Magor's, and they've got some stuff.
They're not things.
They
occasionally hit things back.
And you can't be pushed back. Most of them are just like, you can't be shoved backwards, and that's about most of their attack, and that's it. And you just think, well, do they need to make them a bit more special again, like other companies do, like with Marvel Crisis Protocol and stuff like that from Atomic Games? They re-released a bunch of the cards and said, you know, Hulk was a bit underpowered, so we're going to beef him up or something. And then they just released them online. So I don't think GW will ever release them online, but they could at least release a new pack.
I mean, they've said that they're not going to do a card pack, but I feel like this, I mean, okay, it's a very small subsection of data, but I feel like the data suggests that they should back them up. I don't even think they need to make them more complicated with new rules. They could just maybe give a couple of 2 dodge to sepulchral guard or
like
that kind of thing. I mean, they have shown previous format that they, in the last FAQ, they added all those keywords, which I think anybody was looking for them to do.
No, not really.
But just a little extra boost for those fighters to make people want to, be able to bring them in championship meta and feel like they can compete. It's funny you should say about add new rules, or maybe GW could think of some new rules for them. I actually think part of the draw of those warbands, certainly for me, is that they are very simple.
Simplicity of them.
And you haven't got, it's not like, there was one, Mournflight, but somebody did take the Mournflight, but the Mournflight, every single one's got a different reaction.
That is quite painful, that is true.
And so I wonder whether actually it's the simplicity that is the draw. I mean, admittedly nobody took them, but you don't get much more simple in the game than Iron Skull's boys.
That's true, that is very true. Good old
and if they rewrote those, they could rewrite their Inspire condition to be a little bit fairer with the new timing rules.
And that's a whole different subject. The one day that we'll talk about is all the new rules they added in Harrowdeep, but that's not for today.
No.
One thing you did say a minute ago about it being a very small subset, but this is quite an obvious subset to look at, because they're all people who are willing to go out of their house, travel to a venue, pay a little bit of money, and spend all evening playing this game.
It's true.
I mean, those are the die-hard players, and if they're all doing this kind of thing, that should tell you something about what possibly a larger majority of the die-hard group are.
Absolutely, and it also suggests, as we've already said, that a lot of them have been in it from a long time, in the game for a long time. It makes me wonder whether, with there not being very much Harrowdeep uptake, whether that means that there are fewer new people coming to the game or fewer new people going to events. And that's something that GW need to keep a handle on, because, I mean, it's inevitable that us older folks tend to drift away over time, because you can't keep going on something forever, and they need to be getting new blood in.
Yeah, definitely.
So I would love them to reissue those first season warbands, and I think quite a lot of new players who've come in after they've rolled out of favour, I think they'd like to get hold of them too. So I think it's a bit of a no-brainer, even if possibly this may be controversial, but even if they didn't update the cards, I still think people would buy them. Yeah,
I think you could be right, and I would just like them to pick one. You know, either they're current, they're valid, and you should support them, or they're not valid, they're not applicable, and they should be cancelled out, like with the cards.
I definitely agree with that.
I'd prefer the first one. I think a lot of people would prefer the first one, but I wouldn't mind if it was the second one, as long as they picked something and stuck to it, and just said, look, you want to play anything, you know, any kind of tournaments or anything like that, you can't have season 1, 2 or 3. Yeah, that's just the way it is.
I think they should do that too. If they're not going to, I think they should formalise Relic Plus.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a really great little system that Nick has come up with there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Nick, because it was also the Clash that they had was the same format, wasn't it? But I think it's It's quite an easy way for people to get involved. You only need a warband and another deck.
Yep.
Or you don't even have to have the other deck if you don't want to. You can compete, but you have got a little bit of deck building there. It has a slight problem, as we've already discussed, that Essentials is really strong.
Yep.
But I think if people aren't going to be playing Championship, then they need to formalise Relic Plus as a this is how we're going to do our tournaments.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, nobody really knows, and it just kind of feels like, well, what's the point in running my own Relic Plus tournament if it's not really a thing?
Yeah, and it seems absolutely ludicrous to me that GW released Harrowdeep, much fanfare. Here are the new formats. There's this new Rivals format that they bigged up, and then like a month goes by with zero noise from GW, and then Nick comes along, and I know he hasn't run these with GW's backing specifically, but Nick comes along and basically goes, we're going to use Rival Plus. It's not an official format at all.
No, well, even their first tournament had this unofficial format, and then they haven't really said anything about it.
It's just radio silence.
It's frustrating because they brought out Vanguard format, which was quite a nice format, and they've dropped that.
Yeah.
With area mention, and we need a bit of direction and I think consistency from GW.
And I think part of it is because GW have been, they're obviously working behind the scenes to try and get a new team in place to support a lot of these games, so there has been some silence there whilst they find their footing. But I feel like something like this, which has very little impact really on how the game progresses, wouldn't take somebody an hour to write a new PDF and go, here's a new format, quick little article on Warhammer communities, boom, there you go.
Yeah, well, certainly. Plus. Or if they don't want to do that, say to Nick, make it Rivals or Championship. Don't go
one of the two.
It, or just
stop going off script.
Just essentially, exactly, or whatever. Because I think it's not confusing, but it just doesn't set. It's not consistent.
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of thing that kills or makes a game which is primarily focused around being strategic and about being competitive. Underworlds is meant to be like one of their most competitive games. I think it is one of the most balanced games that GW have ever done. And so they really need to hone in on the fact that people want clarity. They want things to be crystal clear, and they don't want any kind of what ifs to linger around, because that just breeds, I can't think of the word, it's not contempt in this specific case, but it definitely makes people uneasy, and then they start to fade off.
I know what you mean. It's kind of a similar feeling to that when we were left dangling with no FAQ for months and months and months. You start to think, well, what's going on?
Does that mean they don't care about the game?
Yeah, exactly. And I just feel like they need a stronger direction. I mean, there are obviously still some positive things. So, I mean, it's really great that nearly 40 people turned up for this tournament. And we're still kind of under COVID restrictions at that point. People are keen to get out. It is good. Nick is right. It is good to see that people want to play those Shadespire warbands. But GW just need to, I think, take that into account and maybe allow for that in their forward planning.
Yeah.
What do you think? Let us know. Are you a die-hard Iron Skulls boy? Do you want to play the Chosen Axes in the Championship meta? Would you like to see updated faction cards?
Do you think that Scritch is the greatest? And do you think that the Sepulchral Guards should be allowed to crawl forth from the ground once more with maybe a couple more dodge dice behind them?
Can you even remember what the Stormcast warbands were called?
No one cares about the
There was some Fast
Warbands.
Riders actually. Fast Riders were represented.
True, that is true. Yeah. So that's our take on it. Basically, we kind of like the fact that we see it, but we wish GW would do a bit more on that and try and support the game again.
Yeah, absolutely.
As we always want.
Absolutely. Let us know what you think in the comments, and if you're a first-time listener and watcher, then do please like and subscribe.
Yeah, ring the bell
and all that stuff. We've got some good stuff coming up for you in the future.
Yes. So we'll see you soon. Maybe in the Underworlds, maybe somewhere else. Bye.